Hello everyone, welcome to another special edition of the Good Vibe Show, which features outstanding personalities, cheerful people and friends. So today I have with me two young friends, Sanam and Kanika, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. But first, hello Sanam, hello Kanika.
Hello. Hello, thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me as well. And this show came up very spontaneously when we met a few days ago. They happened to be visiting from Boston. And this is Chandigarh where we're shooting. At times we go to other places to shoot, but this is Chandigarh and this is their home in Chandigarh where their mom, Mrs. Rupa Singh, lives. I mean, Sanam's mom. And Kanika is also a Chandigarh girl. Mr. Minocha is also from the same school as I was, and his dad was, and her dad was as well. So I got that right. So Sanam, how is the post-tennis career going? First come to that.
Wow, it's a broad question, but it's been a transition for sure. I think there's been obviously the first couple years you still kind of like as fit, and you still miss the grind on the tour, and you still miss the travel a lot. But because I'm still in tennis, I'm still competitive, I'm still working with college kids, and it keeps that fire burning a little bit. But it's definitely been a transition. I think now I'm really kind of in my own, or have found my own as a coach. So it's a journey, and the journey is continuing, and I think it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, why I pose that to you is so that we give a context to our viewers that after a very active tennis career at a very young age, you become a coach at Harvard, and you live near the campus. You go to Harvard every day, I guess, and train with very good tennis players. Mm-hmm. Are they really good, the ones you are interacting with?
Yeah, so now, last 4 years, Harvard has been, we've been ranked as high as top 10 in Division 1 college tennis, which is where I played as well. I played at the University of Virginia, and, it's very competitive in America. A lot of people have dreams of playing pro tennis, and, it's a privilege to be at a, place like Harvard, because not only do these students have great talent on the tennis court, but as the reputation says of Harvard, they're academically pretty good as well.
Absolutely, so, absolutely. Not only pretty good, but
yeah. But you do have to find the right mix of the kid who fits the bill for the academic side, and also our team is really starting to get competitive with the top 5, top 10 teams in college tennis. So it's they're pretty good players now. So we're very happy that we've established this team, and we're looking forward to this next few seasons.
Great. Coming to Kanika, so Kanika, you're a former sports person yourself. Now you're a psychologist and counselor. So how has that transition been, and how's it going for you at a macro level?
My transition happened a lot sooner than Sanam, than a long time ago. I played golf. I played in India nationally, and then I went to college golf the way he went to college, play college tennis. So I went to San Jose State University in California. But after 4 years there, I recognized that I was ready to move on from the sporting world. So I've transitioned over 10 years ago. So now I feel like I'm very well into the life outside of golf, and most of my time is spent in the working world. I am a therapist by profession, currently not practicing one-on-one therapy, but I'm working in a very interesting niche. I work in a non-profit that uses sports as a medium for therapy with kids.
Right.
So it's wonderful, all kids that have behavioral issues, everyday issues, and there's the stigma around mental health. We've removed that, and we've brought the therapy to them in the form of like a game of kickball or whatever it is. So that's fantastic, and that's where I am, and what I'm doing is bringing a lens of diversity and equity to everything that the organization is doing to make sure that we reach all the kids from all walks of life.
That's very well said, and I'll come back to the mental health part, but let's come to a personal thing. How did you both meet up? Kanika first, and then how did it, without giving too many details, you got married, right? So how did that work out?
You can start.
I can start. Maybe
hopefully the stories match. Yeah.
We met actually a long time ago, almost 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In Chandigarh.
When you were toddlers?
When we were toddlers.
Almost.
We met in Chandigarh itself, actually. I always knew of Sanam as the star tennis player from Chandigarh, and we had common friends. And I was doing my thing. I was at the Chandigarh Golf Association, the CGA range, practicing like I did every day. And all I know is that I was hitting balls, and a ball came and almost hit me and knocked me out, almost.
A golf ball?
Yes. And I was like, whoa, what happened? I looked up and I said, who's this guy? I've never seen him around. And then I heard somebody say the word Sanam, and I said, oh, I wonder if this is my friend's friend. And the rest is history.
Sanam, how did it work out?
Honestly, very well said. I think, so I had injured my wrist. I was supposed to, I think, go play the Junior US Open, but I had injured my wrist and I was out for around 3 months. That was my recovery time. And I was like, what better way to spend it than in Chandigarh, you know, because I've grown up here, but Chandigarh will always hold a very dear place in both our hearts. But I was here and I was like, okay, my wrist is hurt, maybe I should try golf, which was probably not a smart decision. And I'd never lifted a club, so I was on the range and I hit my first, maybe second ball ever, and I barely missed her. And same way, she looked back and, you know, as she said, she knew me as a star kind of tennis player in here, but I also knew she was a star golfer. So, you know, kind of we just, then through mutual friends, we started hanging out the next few months, and you know, she headed to college after that, a year after that, to San Jose State to play Division 1 golf, and a year after that, I went to the University of Virginia to play Division 1 tennis. And you know, I had opportunities to go to Cal Berkeley as well, which was an hour from her, but you know, I just thought going to the other coast might be easier for our relationship.
These things matter very much. But then it all culminated at that point in a wedding, and I was there at a reception at the CGA where you first met,
Yes.
where I believe Somdev, Dev, Raman and other tennis friends were there. So how many years later was that, the wedding?
From when it was 2004?
We met in 2005.
Oh, 2005, yeah. So 10 years later.
10 years later, yeah. So just describe the experience of getting married and all these friends of yours coming from all over, and that ceremony and those ceremonies.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was definitely a, you know, week. I'll say because I'll let you go, but I'll never forget, just because, you know, obviously your wedding week is always special, you don't know. And we were pretty young. I think 27 in this day and age is pretty young to get married, but you know, it was a week-long party like any Indian wedding, and we had around, you know, 50 to 60 people from America who came, her friends, my friends, and they were just elated to see kind of how an Indian wedding was, and you know, every day coming over to my house, her house, and we had a few events, and it was just a blast. And you know, I literally can't believe it. We haven't talked about it much since, but I can't believe it's been 7 years since that.
Yeah.
So you know, like I said, the journey continues, and you know, we're now we have a little baby, and you know, let's see where we go from here.
Yeah, so we talk about the work-life balance. This show keeps flitting from the personal to the professional and back. So we go again to your tennis career, and the fact that you won gold medals at the Asian Games is huge enough. They played Davis Cup, and from Chandigarh, I mean, when you started out, did you dream of reaching the space you did? Did you dream bigger? And were you disappointed at some time? Because when we gain something, we think, why not something higher? So how was your feeling as a tennis player as it progressed?
I think you hit the nail on its head. I mean, that's definitely, as you know, you start achieving more in sport, you want more and more, but that's the perspective a professional athlete needs to have. And if you have that good perspective, that's when you actually like are able to play week in and week out. But for me, I mean, growing up and, you know, playing tennis was more of a hobby. I mean, I started when I was 8, and you know, I don't know when it turned into something that I realized I was good at, and by the time I was 10, I was playing tournaments, and you know, the rest is literally history. Like by the time I was 14, I pretty much, you know, left the house to go train, and I was playing junior tournaments till I was 18, and then I went to college for 4 years and professional for 6 years. So you know, it's been a journey of ups and downs, definitely, in my whole career. You know, there's been highlights, obviously, the Asian Games gold medal, the, you know, winning #1 in the NCAA rankings, you know, playing Davis Cup, playing for your country, honestly, was probably, you know, that national anthem when I played in China, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, the second part of that question, I think, did I feel like I achieved more? When I look back at it now, I can put it in perspective and be like, okay, you know what, with whatever circumstances you had and everything that you did pretty well.
I think you did pretty well too.
250 in the world in singles and 130 in doubles, and playing a Grand Slam.
Yeah.
But then if you ask me during my career, did I have that perspective? Absolutely not. When I first played the US Open in 2014, I thought this was just the first slam that I'm playing. But unfortunately, I didn't play another one, and that's just how it goes. And in 17, when I stopped, actually, it's funny because we were both in Singapore, and I came off the court and I was like, Kanika, I think I'm done. And she just laughed, and she laughed, but she kind of knew I was done.
I was waiting.
But it took me, as I said in the beginning of the show, that it took me a few years to really come to terms with it. And I think I'm very close to really closing that chapter, but I don't think it'll ever really be closed, because even Roger Federer probably thinks he could have won a couple more times.
I played cricket at the junior level, and even though I played only till the age of 20 or so, I still see a cricket ball coming at me in my mind. When I'm walking in a corridor, I imagine myself in the mind batting, and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
So once a sportsman, once a sportsperson, always, it's very difficult to close that chapter.
No, that happens to me too, but the sport has changed. Now it's golf.
Oh, okay.
So, because I have golf now, because I give her credit, that's how I started. But because I have that now, so I want to, anytime I have time off, because my life and professionally everything is on the tennis court, I just want to be on the golf course. So I totally can relate, because, like you said, I'll be just in a corridor in my work at Harvard, and I'll just be like swinging, shadowing, trying to perfect my unusual golf swing.
This golf, it takes over everybody ultimately one by one. But then it's her sport, so.
I did a lot of work for it to stop taking over my life.
But tell me the role of parents and family for you and Sanam as well. You can speak for him, I guess. How much were they supportive in those early years for you to become sports persons and then going abroad and playing? So how important was it, and how personally, how was it for you?
Well, I think I credit my parents for all of the freedom they gave me. It's not easy. Now that I'm a parent, I can understand it mustn't have been easy for them to allow their daughter to make unusual choices. First with the sport, then with psychology. I never heard a no for whatever, for pursuing my dreams. So I'm here because of them, long story short. And they gave me the tools, they provided me with everything, the means, the resources to play golf, and then golf took me to America, and then I just kept doing what I wanted to do. So even though I'm not playing golf right now, it is a very, very, very big part of who I am today, and my parents are the reason why I started playing golf and why I was able to sustain playing golf.
Since we're talking about sports, let's start with that and build up the macro level. We're talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. The pressure of playing and constantly playing and being lonely at times, and Sanam would add to it, I'm sure, a tennis player on the circuit. The parents are not always there. Today it's easier with video calling and things that in early times it was perhaps not that easy. So the mental stress part of a sports person's life, Kanika could start and Sanam could add. How do you handle it? How did you handle it? And how do you recommend that young sports persons handle it?
To be very honest with you, I don't think I handled it well. Hence I'm here hoping that I can support others in handling it better. I don't think I knew any better. And there's just, times have changed. And like you said, when I moved to America, there was just so much distress. Barely we could talk once a week. You were just doing what you had to do, and you wanted to honor your parents and respect, all that they've given you. And nobody really talked about mental health so openly in India back then. So I feel like that's step number one as advice would be, talk about mental health, talk about it. You don't always have to be happy. You can win a tournament and still be upset about something else. So I feel like that's step number one. Just talk about whatever your feelings are, positive, negative, neutral. Step number two would be that your identity and your mental health don't have to derive only from the sport if you're an athlete. You are so much more than what sport you play, what score you put out there, your wins and losses. Those would be my two pieces of advice, and I feel like my passion is to work with athletes. In fact, I do have, hopefully, if it works out, a potential partnership with another non-profit in Boston where I will be working with athletes as a therapist.
Super.
And that would be not for sports performance, more for identity development outside of your sport. So I feel like that's what I would also say to anyone who wants to be an athlete at whatever level, is just get to know yourself outside of your sport as well.
That's a very important point. To establish your own identity apart from your vocation, whether it's the IAS,
Right,
sports,
exactly.
cricket, anything, or you should not be wedded to your career as such. You are an individual. But Sanam, you handled, obviously, as you said, ups and downs, successes, failures, and loneliness, perhaps on the tennis circuit. People do tell me. How did you handle it, and what is your advice to youngsters as a whole? The pressure part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you should ask me the mental health question first, because now the professional's gone, and now I'm not
Go
gonna
ahead.
sound that smart.
Go ahead.
But jokes apart, I think it's for me. I handled it well at times, and not so well at times, and that is due to the fact that I sometimes didn't have the resources to put the right team around me. I think I was doing a lot of it on my own. I never traveled with a coach really. I mean, I sometimes shared a coach with someone, or I had a physio who I shared, but I did work on and off with a few mental coaches. But knowing all that I know now, if I had to go back in time, I would do a few things differently. But that's kind of how you learn from your experiences, and that's a huge reason that I am in the line that I am now, because I feel like my biggest goal and my philosophy is coaching by experience. And I think I can really help shape these kids to kind of, like Kanika was saying, build an identity and understand what tennis means to them, not the other way around, where tennis, in the sense where tennis is a part of your life, it's not your life. That's a big reason that I actually stopped playing tennis, is because it took over my mental well-being a little bit, and it was starting to get, the negativity was starting to creep into my own self, instead of just on the tennis court. So once that starts leaking outside the tennis court, it gets very hard. And the advice to kids coming up, I think one is to make sure that advice to parents too, just make sure you let your kid just really enjoy playing the sport, and make them play as many sports as they can.
Exactly.
Before telling them. A lot of times, and especially in India, I've seen, and I've gone through it, at 12, 13, you win a few matches, and then you suddenly say oh, this person's gonna win Wimbledon and all that. So then the dreams get so big that the kid, by the time they get to 16, 17, are nothing is good enough. So you end up thinking oh, what I'm doing, I've just won a tournament, but that's okay, I'm supposed to be here. That's something that I learned a lot, is that I would win a tournament, and sometimes I wouldn't even enjoy it, and go out the next day and be but that's fine, that's normal, I'm supposed to win this. So that's a mentality which, if you can get rid of, and the best players in any sport, especially in tennis, are the ones who are able to do that, who are able to just be in the moment. I'm sure, you also tell this to a lot of people.
I do.
It's the toughest thing to do, and the best advice that I've ever gotten is, if you can find a way to never be too high, never be too low, because it is never as bad as it seems and never as good as it seems, that's when you're doing your best. But that's what I struggle with.
No, this conversation is going to a very higher consciousness. And before it goes totally out of the room, we will probably, but we need to bring it a little higher at that level. So, Kanika, I mean, as a professional, overthinking vis-a-vis living in the moment, thinking of the future and the past instead of mindfulness is a lot prevalent now. People are always on Instagram, this, that, so comparing with others. What should youngsters do to avoid overthinking and live in the moment? I mean, it's tough. This question is tough. But
very tough question. I don't know if I have an answer to that. I don't think ignoring it is going to make the problem go away. Honestly, youngsters, I think just having a dialogue, just communicating about it, talking about the pros and cons of social media, talking about the pros and cons of living in the future, just having a dialogue. I think what ends up happening sometimes as parents, or just parents mostly, will get scared or fearful of, let's just my kid is looking too much into Instagram, bad influence, XYZ, let's just take that out. They're going to find a way to get into that. So instead, just start having an open dialogue, and just give your kids the tools to express and voice their opinions and thoughts, and hope that you're instilling values that they make better choices or good choices.
It's a very good point you make. Conversation, dialogue, communication is the key to overcoming all this, and loneliness is not going to help at all. And during the pandemic, people were pretty much bottled up, and
Yeah.
then it went worse. It went from bad to worse.
I think the whole world is going through like a loneliness epidemic. I really do feel that.
I mean, I think people are trying to make up for those lost 2
Yeah.
years that we lost. But I'm sorry I didn't answer the loneliness part of it. I think, but it is extremely lonely out there. I think that's another thing people need to realize. A true fact about individual sports compared to team sports is that there's days you're in the middle of nowhere in the world and you're trying to like make a life out of it, and then you lose first round 3 weeks in a row and there's no one around you. So mentally it takes a big toll. So you need to, like Kanika said, just keep communicating from a young age. I think that's the only way. I totally agree with that. I think and that's something I feel, unfortunately, I think in India is still a little bit of a stigma that there's certain things you can't say, there's certain things you can't do. And it happens in America as well, but there's a lot more openness of dialogue and freedom of speech. Whereas in India, we're still a little hesitant on we define the roles too much of parent and child, and you can't say this in front of you or whatever.
So the parents are to be counseled for that, because they are the ones who define these roles. But then Kanika mentioned that if my kid is on Instagram, but hopefully your 2-year-old is not on Instagram and yet.
He's very close to being on Instagram.
It's impossible though. I mean, how are you not gonna have him watch TV or whatever it is? I think it's inevitable. Like the world is moving to screens are everything. So it's.
I also wouldn't blame the parents. I don't want to be harsh and say, I think every parent tries to do their best. It's just hard. It's hard. The world, it's a hard place to raise children right now. There's so many things available at your fingertips. So I'm giving advice but not blaming the parents.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I'm definitely not blaming the parents. I think it's something we can all be mindful of. Even with Arhan going forward, I mean, just because we've played sports and Kanika's in, mental health and I've had experiences doesn't mean that we're gonna
who knows?
have the perfect dialogue with him. We're gonna start him early. We're gonna start talking to him early about a lot of stuff, and hopefully it works out. But he's gonna.
But we are human, right? You're human. Arhan is going to go through his own trials and tribulations, which you can't help. And do you see any sports enthusiasm in him as yet?
He's actually really, his eye-hand coordination is really good.
Okay.
I would hope so. I mean,
I would hope so too. He is pretty quick too. He runs like Sanam very fast.
Yeah, which is very disturbing to me at times, because I feel like he's gonna fall all the time. But
I saw Tiger Woods on a show when he was 2.5-year-old. You may have seen that.
Yes.
Going and
So
I mean,
that's
2-year-old. I mean, what age do you think that a child should be put into regular coaching? I mean, depending on the sport, but what age?
I've actually now I've worked with everyone from 4 years old to like 65 years old, and I think putting them into serious coaching can wait a little bit, but I think there's no age really where they can't start exploring everything. Like I said before, like I think just anything, kick a soccer ball, go play basketball, get a racket, run around, make them do a little bit of work with cones where they're sprinting, colors, all this stuff is gonna really help them develop that hand-eye, and they'll know eventually once they get to 7 or 8, that's when I think you can really start hitting balls or start moving them towards something that you realize, oh wow, the last 2 years it's been really good, so maybe this is his calling or her calling, or whatever it is.
I'm going to ask you something very which you can answer because you're a top sports person yourself. People like Federer and Tendulkar having reached, and Tendulkar because cricket, so we reach that level, tend to overthink a little more perhaps than that spontaneous guy who's just nothing to lose. There's a Surya Kumar Yadav we have in cricket nowadays, just come onto the scene. So the burden of success vis-a-vis that fresh spontaneity, and the only guy I can think of who overcame that is Usain Bolt. According to me, even going for his 9th gold medal, the guy is enjoying it, apparently. So how do they overcome that?
I mean, honestly, I can kind of speculate, but I definitely think Usain Bolt is a special case just because his personality is just you just know he's having fun. I mean, he's from Jamaica. I mean, I don't think any Jamaicans ever stressed, so I think that helps him. But generally, like you talk about Federer and Tendulkar, I think obviously Bolt is there, but I do think in tennis we've seen something in these last 20 years kind of proving what you're saying exactly, because for three guys to win over 60 Grand Slams in 15 years, or not 15, whatever, 20 years is absolutely unheard of. So, you know, they've found a way to be at the top and just kind of channel whatever they have, and they just love the sport so much. And I've talked to some people close to them as well, and who've played with them, who've been around them, and they just say these three guys are just different. They're like, you know, they love the sport. Their belief is almost at a godly level, because once they step on court in a Grand Slam, they're like, this person cannot beat me.
Right.
You know, so that's why they just get through the first 4 rounds like it's nothing, which, you know, people like us, if I play like 4 Grand Slam matches, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty successful career. These guys have won 20 each. So, and the same goes for Tendulkar, Kohli, like, you know, all these guys, to be that dominant for that long.
Yeah, the hunger.
Yeah, the hunger is at a level where, you know, we can't, I think our mere human beings can't, mere mortals, right? That's what the word is. Yeah. Can't even think.
Sadharan log.
हम नहीं सोच सकते उस level पे.
But I'll add to that, if I may.
Sure.
Also speculation, not been at the level. I think there's the burden of, I forget the words you use, there's the burden, but there's also at that level, at the top, there's a lot of loneliness. So I think what also have to give credit to the support system they have around them. Resources, of course, but I think a lot of family, friends sacrifice a lot in the back. I'm not talking about me, don't worry. I'm talking about Federer and, you know, the likes of Tendulkar. Disclaimer, that wasn't me. But they also play a huge role in them being able to maintain their hunger and maintain their, you know, mental well-being or whatever it is, to go out there and keep fighting.
Yeah. Switching gears to, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Chandigarh, you're from Chandigarh. So how much of a role do you think Chandigarh had in your international success in a way, because you've gone and settled, you're doing well in your careers, and a city like Chandigarh, did it provide that foundation for this to happen?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Chandigarh, how did it provide? Through schooling. I was at Carmel Convent and Bhavan Vidyalaya, great schooling. Also, at the time that I was, even now, Chandigarh has been a hub of golfers. So I feel like I was exposed to really high quality golf. So the competition was always high, the pressure was always there. So I feel it really did put me in a good spot to handle not just pressure on the golf course, but even off the golf course, and make the move and adjust to a new country. So definitely Chandigarh is very special.
Any memories that you have?
No, 100%. I agree. Like, unfortunately now, like back when I was growing up, Chandigarh had, when I was playing at CLTA, I mean, we had the India number 1 for under 12, 14 and 16 and even 18 at one point, everyone playing at Chandigarh. So, you know, the level what I saw, and once I got to 14, 15, it just kind of like faded away, and then I had to move away to get that kind of practice. But I can just talk about, like, I don't know, Chandigarh is like, it's so special, because I just think, as she said, I mean, growing up here, going to St. John's, you know, coming back, I mean, I'm a big foodie, so I mean, I've literally for the last month and a half just been eating, you know, so it's something for me. There's a certain comfort level that Chandigarh has, and, you know, growing up here and playing tennis and, you know, having the opportunity to travel, and I think still calling this place home is truly special. Yeah.
Sanam, any fanboy moments you met somebody you were always dreamt of meeting, or played with someone like, or any moment that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think playing Stan Wawrinka and doubles at the Chennai Open was very fun. I think we actually should have won that match. We were 2 points away, and they ended up winning that whole tournament. That was good. But I would say when I was training off season, because Andy Roddick was a very, you know, kind of one of my favorite players, and I was training in Austin, and, you know, Somdev and him did a lot of off seasons together. So I was there doing one of my off season training, which we do in December, 3 to 4 weeks. And, you know, one morning he just goes, all right, Andy's looking for a couple people to practice with. So, you know, I'm going, and do you want to come? So I said, sure, I'll come. Like, that's fine. And, you know, we had a tough morning session of fitness, and, you know, I'm running on the track, playing 2.5 hours in the morning, and then going to practice with Andy Roddick, who I knew was super intense. I still remember driving with Sondev and chugging coconut water on the way and being like, can't embarrass myself. I mean, this is my second maybe year on tour, and I was whatever 300, 350 in the world, and I'm going to practice with this guy who's been top 10 for the last 10 years.
A-Rod, right?
So yeah, and it was a great practice. I mean, it was very intense. He did a lot of trash talking to me, and but at the end of the day, it was a really fun experience, and I still remember it, and it was cool.
I know one guy doesn't like playing, or didn't, Mr. Federer.
Yeah, I mean, he's unfortunately I think that's one person who should have had at least 5 or 6 slams.
I know, if he hadn't run into any of the three, or Federer especially. I'm going to ask you a different one. So, what kind of sense of humor and conversations do you both have with each other? Who makes the other laugh more, or do you have these spontaneous ones, or are you serious people? What's the conversation like?
Definitely not serious people. I think most of the time our conversation and communication in our marriage is based on sarcasm. We're mostly pulling each other's leg. I have a sarcastic sense of humor. He can do both sarcasm and slapstick. So he is funnier. I think I'm really funny, but most people find him funnier. But
maybe they understand his jokes.
Maybe they understand his jokes.
No, every now and then she'll make a joke which is really good.
Every now and then.
No, she's funny. I mean, honestly, like I just like to talk a lot when all our friends are together, and they just know that Kanika and I, like when we're hanging out with our friends, that we're always gonna be like she said, pulling each other's legs and just being like funny and witty and just kind of like keeping the banter going. And that's something when I'm hanging with my friends too, like that's all we do, so the banter is pretty amazing, and I think that's what makes it interesting and keeps us alive.
In fact, Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, who your family follows, and it's he said be a smile millionaire, be cheerful. Cheerfulness is the victory. So he says, if you're determined to be happy, no one can make you unhappy. So all these kind of things. So cheerfulness is a very big plus in this scenario. So let's come to a little last question would be about spirituality and meditation. So since I know that your mother is deeply into meditation, so how's it going, without divulging any personal experiences, but how is your meditation journey going, and how is yours going?
I actually meditated for at least 2 to 3 years when I was from the age of 11 to 12, 13, or whatever, 11 to 14, because I had a coach from the south of India, and he used to tell us meditate for 15 minutes. And I didn't know what meditation meant at that point, right? I mean, I'm a kid, but because, I was innocent, and, I was just so diligent with it. I would come back from school and I would just sit for 15 minutes every time. And, I got to a stage where I could really keep my mind blank, and I still have a little bit of memory of that. But then kind of faded away, life took over, I started traveling, and I never got really back into it. And I mean, I know mom is, a big believer of it, and I think honestly, at some point I probably will get into something. I just don't know what it is, whether, some kind of belief, because I think eventually that is going to happen. But for now, I'm still kind of realizing what my journey is going to be like, and whether it's the spiritual side or whatever it is. But
start small. That's a good way to start. How about you, Kanika?
I don't have experience with actually sitting down and meditating, but I will say I have experienced a meditative state oftentimes during my boxing, where I have zero thoughts in my head. I forget who I am, where I am, what I have to go back to, where I came from, and that for me has been meditation.
It's very meditative,
So
absolutely.
far, though my 2023 goal is to really try, for my own mental peace, because it's really hard to be abroad with a toddler with a full-time job. I really want to carve out 10 minutes a day and try. Give it my 100% this year and see where it takes me.
10 minutes is a good start, and we've had some great vibes on this show. I think I'll rename the show to the Great Vibe Show after you guys. Fantastic conversation, a pleasure, a joy. I'm sure lots of people will be impressed and inspired to listen to you. And thank you for coming.
Of course,
absolutely.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure, and thanks a lot.
And all the best.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, and thanks for watching another episode of the Good Vibe Show.